After Jack got into his room, he immediately took his luggage that he had already packed the previous day before he left. He then looked at the room that was painted white. The color of almost everything inside the room was either white or silver. This was the color that he had chosen in memory of his mother in. As he can remember till this time, his mother had silver hair and blue eyes. She was a beauty, and one thing was for sure, she was more beautiful than the 2 wives that his father had married. He had inherited his mother's features. If there was a part that resembled his father, that would be the way that his jaw was shaped. All the other features were like his mother's. This is what made Jack a handsome young man. With his rare features, he was a dream guy for most of the girls in Crystal City. Of course, as soon as they met Jack's siblings or cousins, they would immediately give up on him. After all, they didn't want to get on the bad sides of these nouveau riche kids. He looked around the room for a little while before he let out a sigh. He then murmured, "Mother, am not sure whether you would have wanted me to leave this place or not. But, am going to go out and prove myself. Although I won't be proving to them, at least, I would like them to know that your son wasn't useless at all." With that, he stepped out of his room and headed to the room that his mother had been using previously before she died. He entered the room that could be said to be a match to his in terms of colors. He stared around for a while. Then, he took a step forward and looked at the bedside cabinet. He opened it and took a big envelope. This was something that his mother told him to take it with him as long as he was sure that he wouldn't be coming back to the room again. Since he was leaving, he had no intention of coming back to this place. Alfonso family had wealth but had no moral values at all. After all, he had the blood of the Alfonsos running in his veins, but he was still being mistreated. He put the envelope into his bag. He was carrying a backpack. He didn't have many things as he was mainly saving money, and he had bought nothing luxurious over the years. In the bag, there were only the few documents that were important to him, a few pairs of clothes and the envelope that he'd just taken. Without looking back, Jack left the room and left the mansion. He didn't find any of his half-siblings on his way out, and he heaved a sigh of relief. Those siblings of his were a headache to him, and he wasn't ready to face them when he was about to leave. So, he could say that it seemed that Lady Luck was on his side this time. As he left through the main gate, he reached the road that led to the main road. This was an exclusive road for the Alfonso family that had been built for them by the governor of the city. This was a show of appreciation and, of course, to curry favor with the Alfonso family. It seemed that he had celebrated too early. As after he got out of the gate, he found that Steve and Brenda were waiting for him. They had even called a taxi for him. He shook his head as he thought to himself, "Seems that they can't wait to get rid of me. Jack, here, we've called a taxi for you and we're even paying for you. No need to thank us, we're family after all." At this time, Brenda strode towards him as she spoke. Her voice was laced with both slyness and mischief. Jack could tell that something was wrong, but he couldn't point it out. For Brenda to do something like this, it wouldn't be as simple as getting him to leave faster. She must be having another plan. But since he couldn't see through her and he wanted to leave faster, he decided to use the taxi that she had called for him. "Thanks," he said indifferently before he got into the cab. Then, the driver immediately started the vehicle and left for the main road. As they watched as the cab disappeared into the distance, Steve couldn't hold himself anymore and asked, "So, what are you planning this time? You didn't pay for him at all, but you told him that you did so. Please visit." "Humph, why would I waste my money on someone like him? As for what I am planning, it's simple. I told the taxi driver to tell me where he's going to take Jack. From there, we can see what we're going to do. I am going to make sure that he comes back while begging on his knees to be taken back into the family," Brenda said with a cold smile. Steve felt a chill running down his spine as he looked at her smile. He couldn't help but think to himself, what a demon. I better not get on her bad side or things wouldn't be so good. Inside the cab, the driver drove the taxi as he looked at Jack via the rearview mirror. He was wondering why this handsome young man was leaving the family mansion where all the riches were. He could see that this young man was wearing some simple clothing. This way, he could guess that this young man's life wasn't good in there. But still, he thought that he shouldn't have left the family. As soon as they got to the main road, he asked, "Where are we going to, sir?" "Inchoate City," Jack replied calmly. He looked out of the window as he let his mind wander around. The driver nodded before taking the road that led out of the city. Before long, they had already left the city on their way to Inchoate City. It would take at least 5 hours to get there. Seeing that Jack wasn't paying attention to him, he immediately took out his phone and sent a text message to Brenda. She had given him $5,000 so that he could give her the location that Jack was going. He saw no reason to refuse such easy money and thus accepted. Furthermore, he knew that if he didn't accept, he would surely have a hard time in the city. Why would he die for a person whom even his family didn't value at all? As soon as he sent the message, he received a reply. "Tell me the exact location that you'll be dropping him, bl.net. He immediately agreed and put his mind back to driving. He was also thinking about the fact that, since he was having the contact of the young lady of the Alfonso family, maybe in the future he could use his connection with her to make his life in the city easier. Jack had no idea that where he was heading to had already exposed. He just sat on the back seat of the cab as he thought about what he was going to do once he reached Inchoate City. He decided that he would open a small store with the money that he had been saving during the years. This way, he could have a source of income. Then, after the business expands, he would be able to get a footing in the city. Although he knew that he wouldn't be able to become a millionaire without getting an opportunity, he decided to be optimistic. Nobody knew what would occur in the future. He took his backpack and opened it. He then took the huge envelope that he had gotten from his mother's room. He had an urge to open and see what was inside it, but he forced down the urge. This envelope had been staying inside his mother's room throughout the years. He was the one that was making sure that his mother's room was tidy. Furthermore, those arrogant members of the Alfonso family thought that it was beneath them to enter a mistress's room. Thus, nobody had ever entered his mother's room since she died other than the servants that were doing the cleaning. Even though the servants knew that the mistress and her son weren't favored by the family, they didn't dare have a thought of stealing anything inside the room. If they were found to have stolen, their fates would be anything but good. Alfonso family had zero tolerance to thieves. So, although the cabinet that the envelope was placed in wasn't locked, nobody had taken it. Jack could clearly remember his mother's words about this envelope. It was simple: if you are thinking about marrying and starting your own family, you can open this envelope. Otherwise, don't do it. Remember, even before thinking about having a girlfriend, you'll have to open the envelope. He was 14 at that time. He didn't understand his mother's words, neither did he understand them even now. As long as he wanted to have a girlfriend, he would have to open the envelope first. But, he would do as his mother wished him to do. He outbacked the envelope back into his backpack. He wasn't ready to get a girlfriend at this time. After all, a girl would mean that he would have to spend more, and he had yet to secure his source of income. Furthermore, although he was handsome, he was sure that as long as the girls knew that he wasn't rich, they would leave in disdain. There were some that had ever wanted to take him as a gigolo. Of course, Jack had never been tempted by such an offer. He wasn't that cheap. As Jack was still thinking, he forgot about time and he didn't know that 5 hours had already gone past. It was already 12, and at this time, a visage of a city could be seen from afar. The taxi driver's voice reached Jack's ears at this time. "Sir, we're about 5 minutes from the city." "Where exactly are you going? In Inchoate City are you going?" Jack looked at the city that was getting closer and closer as time moved. He sighed and said, "Take me to the Yellow Street." "Yes, sir," the driver replied as the car zoomed into the city.